You know the image. A boy high above the Aegean Sea, thrashing as the sun beats down and the wax melts from his artificial wings. The classical takeaway is pretty straightforward. Listen to your parents and don't get overly ambitious. Or, if you prefer the engineering perspective, it's a practical lesson in the limitations of wax as an adhesive. But if the moral is really that simple, why has this specific tragedy obsessed writers for thousands of years? Why does it show up over and over again in modern literature? Because it operates as a psychological blueprint. Psychologists and literary critics call it the Icarus complex. It maps how a healthy drive for achievement twists into hubris, an arrogant overconfidence that spirals through ambition, willful blindness, and eventually self-destruction. The story of Icarus is a diagnostic tool. It shows us exactly why humanity's greatest triumphs so often contain the exact mechanisms for our own ruin. The complex starts with a totally rational impulse, the urge to escape. In the original Greek myth, Icarus and his father Daedalus are literally trapped inside a stone labyrinth on the island of Crete. When 20th century authors adopt this myth, they replace those physical walls with invisible ones. The trap becomes society itself. Take James Joyce's coming-of-age novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Even his main character is named Stephen Daedalus. Growing up in early 1900s Ireland, Stephen feels suffocated. He describes his nationality, his language, and his strict Catholic religion as nets flung at the soul to hold it back from flight. To survive, he has to turn his mind to unknown arts. He crafts metaphorical wings out of his own intellect, deciding that the only way to reach his ideal self is to fly past those cultural nets and embrace the freedom of an artist. This first symptom of the Icarus complex, the intense drive to ascend, is a completely healthy human desire. We all want to break free from the limitations imposed on us. The danger begins in phase 2. This is the moment when the healthy urge to fly ferments into hubris. In this context, hubris operates as a willful, arrogant blindness to reality. Christopher Marlowe's play, Dr. Faustus, provides the ultimate literary case study in this specific kind of blindness. Faustus signs a pact with the devil in exchange for infinite knowledge and magic. Throughout the play, he is explicitly offered 4 separate chances to repent. A good angel literally appears to warn him, but driven by an insatiable appetite for power, he repeatedly ignores the warnings. He chooses the wax wings. This self-deception can take even more insidious forms. In Iris Murdoch's novel, The Sea, hubris manifests internally as overwhelming jealousy and vanity. The protagonist's ego acts like a metaphorical sea monster, clouding his judgment so thoroughly that he fails to warn his innocent ward, Titus, about the treacherous local waters. Because of that vanity, Titus literally drowns. Hubris is a fatal psychological filter. It forces us to intentionally ignore the exact warnings that could save our lives. So, what actually happens when reality catches up? The wax melts, and gravity finally takes over. The poet W.H. Auden captured the answer by looking at a 16th century painting by Peter Bruegel titled Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. Look at the bottom right corner. There are the tiny, thrashing legs of Icarus plunging into the green water. Meanwhile, a farmer continues plowing his field, and a nearby expensive ship sails calmly on. Nobody stops. Nobody cares. The true punishment for the Icarus complex is not death. It is total insignificance in the face of an indifferent universe. But does the plunge into the sea have to be the final word? 20th century writers didn't think so. In Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, the concept of flight is reclaimed. Instead of a foolish overreach, flying becomes an ancestral pathway to liberation, a way to rise above the generational trauma of slavery. The characters learn a crucial rule for surviving in the air. To truly fly, you have to shed your vanity and drop the excess weight that holds you down. We see a similar twist in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's magical realist story, A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings. An artist-like figure crashes painfully into a mud puddle and is relentlessly mocked by the local townspeople. But unlike the classic Greek myth, this fall isn't fatal. After a brutal winter, the old man slowly heals, regrows his wings to full strength, and clumsily takes back to the sky. Gravity is inevitable. The risks of hubris are terrifying. But the willingness to strap on the wings and risk the fall anyway is the essential prerequisite for art, freedom, and human greatness.